Welcome back to Care for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 986, we're going to talk about Kinzu, the Bleak Coven. My bad. So for 5 mana, we get a 5/4 flyer. I mean, it's not bad right there. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's 1/1 and has Toxic 1. Now, I know there are ways to maximize the toxic ability here, but I did not do that. There was a couple things that led me. Anyway, let's get to our before we get to the ramp. Swiftfoot Boots, because it doesn't fit in any other category. It's just a good card, especially with our commander. So we have ramp. The usual suspects in Soul Ring, Charcoal Diamond, Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, Spectral Searchlight, Pristine Talisman, Solemn Simulacrum. I'm going to count as ramp. You're casting a spell and you end up with a land out of it. Burnished Heart, Dark Ritual, because I figured it'd fit, and Nirkana Revenant. At 6 mana, yes, it's kind of difficult for some people to consider this ramp, but when it doubles all your swamps, and that's pretty good. Also happens to be a vampire. Our commander's a vampire. And as it turns out, all the things we want to do, sacrifice creatures and whatnot, pretty strong vampire abilities. So, vampire, I don't want to use the term tribal because we have lots of stuff that's not vampire, but it's vampire dominant, let's put it that way. And our card draw. Pay and life draw cards, you know how it is in mono black. Sign and Blood, Infectious Inquiry. Everybody gets a poison counter, that kind of feed the infection. I like this one, especially late game. Read the Bones, Night's Whisper seems to fit. Ancient Craving also fits. Champion of Dusk, another vampire. ETB, draw X cards, lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. Okay. The Twilight Prophet. Now, the City's Blessing is not that hard to get. 10 permanents in Commander anyway. It's not that hard. But at the beginning of your upkeep, as long as you've ascended, you reveal the top. It's like Reverse Bob. You reveal the top card, put it in your hand. Each opponent loses X, you gain X, where X is the card's mana value. That's pretty sweet. So, the first thing we got to do is we got to sacrifice creatures, right? Well, there's no better way to do it than an Ashnod's Altar. Just hands down. Phyrexian Altar probably pretty good too. I don't have that one. As an instant speed, Dark Ritual-like effect, Culling the Weak. There are very few cards with the card type mana source. This is an instant now, by the way. It was Culling the Weak, Dark Ritual. I can't remember how many others. But sack it to get 4 black mana is not bad. Fleshbag Marauder, I mean, I wouldn't call it a sack outlet because it's just a one-shot deal. But the beautiful part is, in this deck, it does double duty. If you've got 2 more mana, thanks to our commander, this is a non-token creature. It will die because I'm going to sack it when I play it, and then I'll spend 2 mana and get another one, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, pretty nice. The Indulgent Aristocrat. Imagine that. A life-linking vampire that likes to sacrifice creatures and puts a counter on each vampire you control. Whoa. We have Bantu, not a vampire, but, still a good sack outlet. And then the Woe Strider. Sack a creature, scry 1. It's not bad. Not bad. And it's got a pretty decent escape clause as well. Now we have our death triggers. There is no better death trigger in vampire history than Blade of the Blood Chief. I mean, it's a good card regardless, but if you've got vampires, it is literally twice as good. The Grim Haruspex. It's a human. When your creature, a non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. Cordial Vampire. Another creature dies, put a 1/1 counter on your team. Falcon Wrath Noble, Vampire. It or another creature dies. Life Slurpee. Blood Artist, same thing. Vran, the Executioner thing. When one or more other creatures you control die, each opponent loses 2, you gain 2. It does only trigger once each turn. That is one of the most hated lines in Commander. Yes, along with play this as a sorcery. Crossway Troublemakers. Attacking vampires you control have Death Touch and Lifelink. That's pretty strong. You better be strong. It's 6 mana, 5/5. But whenever a vamp dies, you can pay 2 to draw a card. Not bad. Not bad at all. So let's look at the rest of our vampires, shall we? We got to have creatures to sack. And, I mean, sacking vampires is as good as anything else, right? Before we get into it, I do want to do Herald's Horn. Because it's not exactly card draw, and it's not exactly mana ramp, you know. It is a spell cheapener for vampires. It will, a certain percentage of the time. Yeah, I know it's better with the top. But let's look at our vampire, shall we? Since we are sacrificing things, the Singir the Dark Baron likes it when we sack things. The Master of Dark Rites. This is actually, the flavor here is this is actually the vampire that performs the Dark Ritual. Tap, sack a creature, add 3 black. You can only use it to cast Vampire Cleric Demon spells, so vampires. Oathsworn Vampire, Gifted Aetherborn, Sanctum Seeker, Bloodlord of Azgoth, Nighthawk Scavenger. We're just rolling through these. Butcher of Malakir is another good one. One of your creatures dies, everybody sacks something. It gets to a point where that flesh bag is going to clear people's boards. Not as much as our good friend Anawan, though. Beginning of your upkeep, each player sacrifices a non-vampire creature. If we happen to have one of our non-vampires out, not a problem. We want to sacrifice things anyway. We get a second life out of them. Although they're 1/1s, but you know, hey. Can't win them all. Olivia's Wrath. Now, I know this is a sorcery, but it's... If they still did tribal sorceries, this would be a vampire sorcery, right? Defiant Bloodlord. Malakir Blood Witch can just win games by herself. The Bloodline Necromancer. Necropolis Regent. What? Deals combat damage to a player. Put that many +1/+1 counters on it? On a 6/5 flyer. I still can't get over this card. It's a great card. Patron of the Vein. Oh! Is that my second Oathsworn Vampire? Let me double check. I can't have that, can we? That is... I guess you can tell I haven't played this one yet. Oh, yeah. Even the same anime art. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to take this out, and we're going to make this a good old-fashioned swamp. So, fixed. Now, yes, that this is one of the downside of me not listing the decks on Architect anymore, is that, yeah, I sometimes I run across that and I have to fix it. It rarely happens. Luckily, I haven't played this one, though, so I don't feel terrible. But when it does happen, yes. So I have a swamp, too many. Which, anyway, let's continue. Camber, the plumber. Oh, Plunderer. My bad. The Goldraw's Overseer. The Vampire Nighthawk. Flying Death Touch Lifelink. Such a great card. Markov Baron. Meh. Krovax. I got to do it. Y'all know I got to do it, right? Okay, way back in the day when the type line said summon, and they come out in legends with actual legends that had it's a creature type. But back then it was a creature type with rules baggage. Now it's a super type. But they had to distinguish it as summon legend, and then if the creature type of that legend was important, they would put it in the text box. Like Radiant has it. It's Radiant Archangel, and I think Miri. Anyway, from that era, if it was important enough, they would put it in there. So, Krovax the Cursed is from the Weatherlight story. Krovax the Cursed counts as a vampire. You know what that means? 1, 2, Sorry. I know the joke is old. It never gets old to me. But Krovax also eats a creature a turn, which is a good sack outlet. We have a Bloodline Pretender. There's never been a more perfect match than Bloodline Pretender for this deck, right? And then Adaptive Automaton. Why not have a robot vampire? I mean, why not? Robot vampire sucks blood? I don't know. Don't put too much thought into it. It's a robot vampire. And our removal. We have Feed the Swarm, Black Sun Zenith, because that's amazing. And there are times, as many creatures as we have, there are times we're just going to get behind on creatures and we just need to start over. Doomblade. I like Corrupt. I know it's a 6-mana sorcery and doesn't get a lot of love anymore. Mono black, though, it can swing a game. It can definitely swing a game. And then Mutilate for when everything must go. And that leads us to our non-basic lands. Yes, I have the Bojuka Bog. If you'll notice, memory was jogged by Bojuka Bog here. If you'll notice, there's not any or a whole lot of bring creature back from the dead things in the deck because our commander exiles them. So that's the reason why. Now, I know the commander's not going to be out there all the time, but it just seemed counterintuitive to me to bring things back from the dead when you can't really, if we're doing what we want to be doing, they won't be there. The Myriad Landscape, Polluted Mire Cycle if you get it late, the Rogue's Passage, and we're going to end on Count Dracula, the Voldaren Estate. So, that is what we have got for Kinzu. I do appreciate y'all watching. I apologize for the slight mishap with the vampire there. But that is what we've got for today. Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and shuffle and cut.